Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's been on my heart today to share part of my testimony. It's a pretty long one, that's why it's just not all together and out there. Anyways, I was born the middle child, and my older brother and I, we were maybe a year and 2 months apart in difference, and my younger brother, we're talking almost 10 years difference. But anyway, so when I was growing up with my mother and my older brother in northern Ontario, in the middle of a mining community in the middle of the bush. I was raised by men all my life, grew up with men and boys. I was the only female. So anyways, I remember the devil tried to get me really, really young. Me, my brother, and the girl that we were with. But anyways, this isn't going to be easy. When I was 3, maybe 4, and I remember this, my mother, she went from man to man to man. So the one man that she was with, he had a lovely daughter. She was probably 14, 15 at the time. And she took me and my brother out to a Walt Disney film. It was Snow White. And I remember it was just before my birthday. So it was the beginning of December. And it was a mild northern Ontario night, but it was still really cold. We had mitts and jackets and hats. But anyways, my mother was going out with her new boyfriend, and she said that they would be there after the show to pick us up. So after the show, it was cold. I remember how cold it was, and it was dark. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And she never came. So next thing we know, a car pulls up, and there's a man in there, a man that I've never seen before, and Catherine ran over. He waved Catherine on, and she ran over to the window, and she goes, "Oh, did Linda send you to pick us up?" And he said yes. So she opened the back door, and Derek and I climbed in. He was, 4.5, 5. I was probably 3.5, 4, would be my guess. I was really, really young. I know I wasn't in school yet. And this man drove to this open area along a lake, and he pulled the car over, and he kept the doors, those automatic locks, and he attacked Catherine, and he was trying to rape her. And I remember being there and how terrified I was. And my brother was screaming and crying. And Catherine was screaming and yelling, "Derek, open the door. Unlock the door. Please, sweetheart, unlock the door." And Derek was so terrified, he just froze and he didn't move. He just couldn't move. All he could do was scream. So, Catherine bit the man really hard, and she fought him off, and she hit the locks, and she got us out. And we started running towards the lake because the other way was just complete darkness. And there was houses around the side of the lake, and we could see them. So he put his car into gear, and he started driving towards us. He was trying to run us down. And we started to run. And we ran, and we ran. And we ran so fast. And he was trying to get us. And Catherine drug us down into the lake. And we went right into the water, and it was so cold. So, so cold. And I remember the 3 of us cowering down and hunched over, walking along the side of the lake in the water and going through the underbrush that was there, trying to hide. And we were hiding and hiding and hiding. And eventually he went away. He just went. And I remember we stayed there and we still hid even after he was long gone. So we came out eventually and we ran to the closest house with the lights. And next thing I know, the police were coming for us and my mother was picking us up. But anyways, this experience gave me an intense fear of water all my life. I was so afraid of water, any darkness in water, even cleaning the sink, just the drain and not seeing. I can't see what's in there. I can't. So, anyways, I really struggled with this for a long time. And praise Jesus, I don't fear water anymore. And I haven't for a few years now. And he has given that freedom back to me. He's been my healer of everything. But anyways, growing up, it wasn't easy. My mother was a single mom, and she went from job to job and man to man. And finally, she met my stepdad because she remarried when I was about 9. And he was a good man. He showed us what a father should be, and like we didn't have a father. Anyways, there was a lot of violence at home and abuse. A lot when Jim wasn't around by my mother. Like, she was very unstable. And her father was an alcoholic, so she had the characteristics of an alcoholic, and she was very abusive to both of us. And so by the time I was 15, I left home. I had had enough. And my childhood, that's a testimony on its own, and I'm sure someday you'll get it. So I left home, and I chose to live on the streets. I got involved in the occult and the Satanic Bible and drinking and drugs and partying and just craziness. And I ran hard. I was just angry, and I was sad, and I was hateful. I was rebellious, and I just didn't want to listen to anybody because nobody understood. So I grew up, and in my adult years, I had 3 children out of wedlock. And I've never been married. And that wasn't easy too, because being a single mom and living a wild life, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I went from one abusive relationship after another, physically, emotionally, and psychologically abusive partners, usually men who were alcoholics or addicts. And my way of love was sex. What can I do for them? And just catering and being the caregiver. And, I had such a spirit of rejection and fear and depression. And I met a man that was paranoid schizophrenic. And his mother had just committed suicide about a few months before we met. So I felt really bad, and this compassionate heart always came out, and it always got in trouble even when my mind said, no, don't go there. So we got involved, and he was really violent, and he would hallucinate. And I remember one night he saw dead bodies in our bathtub, and he was just freaking out. And then he went in the kitchen, and he grabbed a steak knife, and he just started stabbing himself. But anyways, that's a testimonial on its own too, and one day you'll get that as well. But this man, I remember one night he tried to kill me. I know he was trying to kill me. And he grabbed a wooden statue. It was an African fertility god statue that I had bought, and it was from Kenya. And I had a couple of them around the house at that time. And he grabbed that, and he beat me with it. He beat me with it in the shoulders, the back, the head. I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital afterwards. Every time I fell asleep for about 2 or 3 days afterwards, I would stop breathing and wake up just gasping and gasping and gasping. So it was like my body had forgotten how to breathe, and when I fell asleep, it was just, I would stop breathing. Anyways, it took me years to heal up from the physical abuse, like physically. So when I left, I was pretty messed up. He stalked us for years, and eventually the Children's Aid Society came in, stepped in, and took my kids. But considering the situation, we lived in fear all the time. So it got to the point where I couldn't leave the house. I lived in so much fear. I couldn't do anything. I was just paralyzed by fear for years. So I lost my kids over this, and that was really hard. I hit such a low place, and I was so suicidal. I had actually gained a spirit of murder, and I know I did at this point in time, because I just would fantasize on killing people I hated. I just had so much hate and so much built up rage, so much anger and fear, and it just controlled everything about me. So at that time, I was in chronic pain because I had went through so much physical abuse, and the doctor had me on OxyContin, which is a form of synthetic heroin, and I got addicted to it. Oh, did I ever get addicted to it? And I didn't shoot it up, but I did crush it up and snort it, and that was my thing, just snorting. I had nothing left. I'd lost my kids, I'd lost my home, I was living in a battered woman's shelter at the time, and I couldn't even leave my house. So yeah, dope really, especially the prescription dope, really took all that away, and which was wrong, don't get me wrong here, but anyways, I had an old friend of mine, she bumped into me, and her and I used to go back to church when I was a teenager, and she says, "Come on out. I didn't know you were back here. Come on out." And I really didn't, but she came, picked me up, and took me to church. And it was a Kundalini-filled church, mind you, but my thirst for finding God was so much stronger than what was going on around me in that church. You know, I had a drive to be there, and I taught Sunday school. But anyways, I'm taking you to church because about 2 months after I went to church, I got invited up to Toronto, and it was like anti gay lesbian thing at Parliament Hill, or not Parliament Hill, Queen's Park in Toronto, and I was actually ODing on the lawn at Queen's Park, and the people I was with from church didn't even know, because I had snorted so much heroin the night before. When you snort yourself to the point where you fall asleep and you're just gone, well, that is the start of an overdose. I didn't know that until after I stopped. But anyways, I felt just awful. Like, even when we went to a restaurant afterwards, I was falling asleep at the table. I slept and I slept and I slept. So anyways, I told the connecting pastor what was going on with me, and I cried to her, and I said, "Look, this is what I'm facing, and I can't stop. I'm addicted to synthetic heroin." I says, like, I don't know what to do. And I said, "Can you please take my pills?" And so she said, yeah. And I says, "Well, you burn them in your fireplace." And I gave her a lot of things to burn, like the African fertility god. I still hung on to all that stuff. For years I hung on to that stuff. I don't know why, it was just creepy. But anyways, and she burnt those pills, and we prayed that night. And that night I went home and I went to bed, and I had a decent natural sleep. And the next morning I woke up and I had no cravings. I've never had any cravings to use. I had no withdrawals, and I was using all the time. When I was using a lot, I had no withdrawals, no cravings, no nothing, and he gave me freedom there too. So anyways, I moved out to the farm not too long after that, and I needed to go to the farm because the farm gave me that security and safety I needed to just go out of the house and sit on the porch for 5 minutes, because that's how paralyzed I was. I couldn't even do that. And it wasn't long after I was on the farm that my oldest son, Jonathan, died of acute methadone poisoning. And during that time, like, I knew Jesus, and I had been healed and delivered of certain things in my life, but really I wasn't walking with Christ. And I had to find out what happened to Jonathan, and that's when Christ came to me and said, hey, let's go. And I've been there since, with him, walking with him. And just to let you know, I'm fear-free today. I don't have depression. I leave the house. I can go anywhere, and I'm not angry. I'm not depressed. He has healed me emotionally. And these demons, like the spirit of rejection and the spirit of fear, all that, it's gone. Praise Jesus. He can heal you of anything. He can. And he can make you a new person. Because look what he's done with me. My life is his, and it always will be, because life is nothing, absolutely nothing without Jesus. He is my everything. Anyways, brothers and sisters, thank you for listening. And just remember, he can heal your life too. He can deliver you of fear, depression, anxiety, rejection, all that stuff that people just are suffocated by. You can have freedom. I am a living testament to that freedom, and I couldn't have done it without Jesus Christ.